Can you hear us? Is this thing on? I think it's on now. You'll hear Mabel barking in 3 seconds. Okay. Excellent. Let's give Mabel a minute because she is craving that attention. I swear, she just she knows the camera starts and then she just wants to take over. So I did prepare something for her, a little special. So I might have to go and grab that. Oh yeah, could you show them your side eye? Can you show them your side eye? Can you just can you please? Will you show them your attitude? Ooh, okay, okay, okay. 1 second. Let me go get the special treat for her. Who else has a dog that enjoys these lick mats? Lick mats to the rescue. This Twitch stream should be brought to you by lick mats, actually. They might save us. Today's on the menu. Let's wait, stay down. Today on the menu, we've got peanut butter, yogurt, sweet potato cookies, and some beef and salmon freeze-dried things. Yes, almost all organic for this precious little angel. All right, ready? You want to show him your trick at least? You want to do a trick? You good paw? Oh, good, other paw. Other paw. Yeah, you're okay. Hang on. Whoa. Slow down. Good girl. Okay. Ready? Hey, nope. Okay, we'll put it here. Hey, sit. Stay. Hey, stay. Okay, go ahead. Okay. Okay, we'll see if that keeps her busy. All right, and now we get to dive in. All right, this week 3. So exciting. What is going on here? Week 3. Let me fix that. Week 3. We are about to get into some engineering today, which is really exciting. So we're gonna up it a level. We've been drawing. It's been very chill, very calm. This is one of my favorite parts of the rigging process because I always find that it's just drawing. You know, nothing wrong with that. You find your flow. There's no fighting in the network. And so, yeah, today we're going to dip our toes into the engineering portion. And then what we're also going to do is I'll do a little backtrack. So I will finish up what I was doing last week. I know I kind of mentioned that I would pop in on Monday and finish the hair, but I didn't quite make it, and I wanted to extend the first ever Mistake Monday challenge. So if anybody wants to pop on over to that link, I'll have to share it. I'll have to get the information to share it. Or you can hop into my Instagram or LinkedIn account, and it'll be posted there. That's probably a better way for me to plug that. Yeah, if you know how to what are we doing? We're duplicating drawings and renaming them with multiple drawings at once. So if you know how to do that, send in your response. I know you can do it in about 2 to 3 steps. So ish. So if you send me in your responses and your answers and your guesses, we're gonna try it out on Monday, and we're gonna fix up that mistake, the first one. And then after that, we are going to talk a little bit about what we've done over the past before we transfer totally into engineering. Let's just go back and just talk about what we kind of did, and let's be really clear about the process of drawing and the layering of all the drawing nodes, just so that we can. And I know that when I go into the hair, because I've been doing this for a weekly thing, it's actually kind of hard for me to track which drawing's which. So let's go through that hair and make sure that it's labeled clean, because maybe that's something we do want to quickly make an adjustment to in case it's not clear. And then the other thing is, because you are doing this at home, or if you're doing this at home, or when you're doing this at home, for naming conventions, just stick with what's good for you. The only thing that I do recommend is that you avoid using the terms left and right. Only because if we flip a character, your left and your right start to go like this, and then they don't make sense anymore. So you always kind of want to know, um, you always kind of want to avoid that one. You can go with a front and the back. It's just that you can run into problems in the front view, of course, and your back view when your arms, like if you're labeling your arms front and back. Um, if you think about the quarter front view, this shoulder right here would be the front dominant arm because you're doing the whole rotation kind of like this. So that's another way to talk about like labeling the sides is front and back. It's just they've all kind of got pluses and minuses. You kind of have to choose which one your instincts are and then just go with your gut because you're using this system. If you're working for a studio, though, you're going to have a very specific set of rules that you want to follow. But until you get there, you don't have to worry about that so much. For now, you want to choose a naming convention and you want to stick with it. You want it to be consistent and you want it to be descriptive and what else? You want it to be familiar to you while you're working on your own rigs. Okay, so let's see. Let's go into I got some hellos in here. Hello, May Wizliwa. Is that Maywa? Oh, nice. Hi, Maywa. Who else we got in here? We got the film Who Wasn't There. Hello, and all right, and me. I'm in the chat. All right. All right. So thanks for sticking with our little tech issues this morning. That's our first tech. Those are our first tech mishaps. So that's exciting. Just needed to be replugged. All right. So let's change this to gameplay. And let's get started. Yeah. Okay. So let's make my library smaller. I was moving things around for the Mistake Monday. All right. We got Kadence. Let's see, where are we? This is the center of the drawings of the networks. This is my to-do list for Monday. Match the back, which is today. Match the back view for the front view of the hair. Yes, that's a cool trick that I was going to show you how to do. That should take probably the first half of today's lesson. Let's see. And let's do that first. Let's finish up our drawings. And then we'll jump back into like the naming of all the layers. We'll kind of finish what we were doing, and then we'll have a little recap. So don't let me forget. I hope I don't forget. All right, so we got hair detail, which is already done. I got this piece up here, which is probably a discarded piece. Hair detail loop. Which one is this one? That goes right here. Zoom in. Maybels really enjoying that lick mat. All right, we got a hair piece. Let's color these in as we go. And again, with the method that I work with, we have to turn our light table and our drawing on top on so that we can see what we're doing. Okay. And I'm going to start coloring all the pieces of the hair. This one I haven't quite, oh, okay, here we go. I have the outlines, but I haven't quite done the details. Let me get more into this. Okay, so we're jumping into our different select tools. This one right here is the contour editor. It's the white select tool. I'm trying to, if you can kind of see all of the pieces of my drawings, I'm trying to get them all to converge right here so that they have a point. This is actually what we're going to change with the back view. So I'll do it kind of loose for now, but I know I'm going to come back and make this edit. All right. We got Maywa in the chat here, actually. So he actually, and I should have shouted it out at the beginning, but he designed Kadence. So if anybody has questions about the design of Kadence or wants to ask a designer anything about the animation process or an animator, Maybell is super talented. Maybe, uh, yeah, maybe Maywa, you want to talk a little? Want to tell us a little bit about because you've kind of been everywhere. I believe you worked in games as well. Nope, just kidding. Oh, okay. Little guest appearance here. So that's pretty exciting. Should have you call in one day. A parsnip. That's pretty good. Actually, he could be a turnip. Maybe for Halloween, he'll be a turnip. Okay, let's see this one right here. All right, so I am utilizing a quick trick that lets me jump around drawings pretty quickly. And it's when you hold down Control and then you use your, where's my camera? When you use your pen or your mouse, you can actually like swipe a drawing. So you can just kind of flick and you can actually jump between the drawings really quickly. So I do use that tool to jump around quite a bit, and you can definitely steal that one from me. There you go. I didn't know you started your career in Australia. That's pretty cool. Meiwa is a very talented artist, including you do 3D stuff too, play ukulele. You're kind of all over the place, creative in a good way, in a real good way. Meanwhile, what's the skill that's taken you probably the hardest? Like, what's the skill that's taken you the longest to learn? Like, out of all of your mediums that you've worked in? The best skill is learning how to be efficient, and that takes time. Yeah, for sure, absolutely. Uh, you have to make every mistake to learn how to not make the mistakes. And that is the best and worst part. Ah, yeah, 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 yeah. Definitely asking questions helps. I love asking questions. I love throwing questions, which is what Mistake Monday is kind of about. Yeah, lean on the community around you for sure. For sure, for sure. That's what this is about. Can I get a man? Sorry. Ah, all right. All right, let's double check the rest of the hair. We've got the outlines here. This one. Okay, let's see. Okay, this one is the head. Okay, so we've got, let's just double check the shadow here. This one is in front of this one. Just checking to see our shadows, make sure that they are all layered properly. They look pretty good. Still looks pretty rough with the, none of the cutters have started. I have not used any of those cutters yet, so it's still looking a bit rough, but we'll start to take care of a lot of that today. But that's looking pretty good. All right, so then let's do the back of the character. And I'm going to go over to, let's do, I'm going to do another peg. Now, the reason why I'm adding another peg to this, and I could also do my slide peg actually, but I'll leave my slide peg, but I'm going to add one more peg above the designs peg. And what this is going to do is I'm going to use it to reposition the peg, the design to get to the back view. But what it's not going to do is it's not going to interfere with the pose that we're working on now. So I'm a big fan of adding new pegs and then either deleting them or removing them or just deactivating them. But I always want to label them. So BK view. All right, so now I'm going to align this over here. Oh, hello. And it looks like I got to flip it. So maybe I'm going to reset that and just flip it. There we go. It fits perfectly. Let's just double check. Did it flip? No. What happened? Okay, flip. What's going on here? Okay, there it goes. Line it up. Now let's see if we can steal the bottom of the design. Okay. One shortcut that I'm using too to jump around is the O, which just kind of allows you to select something in your camera view, and then when you bring your mouse back over to the node view, you hit O, and then it just kind of centers on that selection. So it's just a nice way to, if you want to deactivate an entire composite bar, which is what I want to do, you can find it really quickly. And then same with these pieces. So maybe I want to deactivate this whole composite bar. This one I know is separate, so deactivate that. All right, so now what I have here is you can't really tell, and it looks a little bit messy, but if you bear with me for 1 second, this is just a quick trick. I could leave my, this is like a pro trick, to be honest, because when I first started, I wouldn't have taken this step. This is something that I just learned to do over time, somewhere in my career. So what you can do is when you line up the back view, it allows you to see the whole piece. And even though the piece might not be exactly the same, like you can see right here that it's breaking through, so it might not be an exact copy, but a lot of the times the front view and the back views are really similar. And then the quarter fronts and the quarter backs are really similar. So, and then the profiles you can usually see if there's a flip, unless it's asymmetrical. So unless the character is like completely asymmetrical, which this guy is, but we can still kind of work with it. The nice thing that you can do is the parts of your drawings that are hidden in the front view and the back view you can see, so that you can kind of match it up. And what that does is it just helps you keep your character on model for more further, like you can get further animation for it. So yes, if you're just starting out, you can leave your drawings this way because your pivot points are going to be about right here. It's not a big deal. Let me see if I can, let me hide these. Let me hide all of these for a quick second so you can see. So your pivot point will be down here, but in the back view, we can see that it's like a sharp view. So when you're looking at rigging a whole character, it's typical when you have a little bit more experience behind you to start looking at the character as a whole as you're rigging the front view. So even though we're working on the front view right now, I'm just showing you a trick on how to take in consideration how the character is going to look when it rotates. And so this is it. So we're going to implement this little spiky bottom of the carrot into the front view, even though we can't see it. So deactivate, activate, that's the one. All right. All right, so all we have to do is go through these one by one. This one is the design. So that one can stay. We're not going to change it. They're not going to change that. This one here, we're going to change. And I'm going to grab with my pen. Okay. And you know what? I filled these in, but now I regret it. So I'm probably going to end up, actually, what I'll do, I'll just put it aside. Okay. So again, our select tool, our best friend, is the white arrow. Just to get into here and all these details, I'm going to delete that. What is everybody working on as you're rigging along with me? What are you working on again? I want to throw that out to you. And also, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to see like your workspace, and maybe I'll take a picture of my actual workspace and share it on my social media. So if you find me on, that'll probably be a good one for Instagram. If you go to Instagram and take a photo of your workspace, I'd love to see it while you're working with me. And also, yeah, maybe I'll share mine. Mine's a bit of a mess right now, but who cares? And we have a question here. So you're using the back view as a reference to aid in deciding where to put the pivot point for the hair. Yes, but we're also going in and tweaking the drawing so that, and we're not doing pivot points right now. We're just tweaking the drawings. So like now the drawings, if we change the drawings now, they're going to tell us what to do for the pivot points later. So we don't have to worry about that yet. We just want our drawings to look good. So yeah. And you have to also, do you have to recolor a shape if you've changed the line art since you first filled it? I'm going to recolor the shape because I couldn't see through the shape. So I've pulled it out. Which you can see here. This is, you can unpaint it, which is a quick way to do this. But I tend to pull the shape right out and then I can color pick it and paint it real quick. And then it saves me all the time from having to do anything over here. I don't even tend to go back to my color pot. So that's kind of my own trick on this. Right. Okay. So actually here, use my color dropper, which the tool for that is D. And then you can repaint it, which the tool for that one is I, or the hotkey. I'm just trying to smooth some of these lines out. Deactivate. Yeah, it's rigging is a lot of forethought. It's a ton of forethought, and it's a lot of like I think I've mentioned this already, but it's a lot of rules like don't do that, don't do that, no, don't do that. So it's hard to keep up, and the more you do it, the more you like those things will stack up, and you kind of you start to look and look and look, and you check and you catch more and more. But that's the whole point of me jumping back in here like I am. I'm a bit cold from rigging, so I'm making mistakes here. And like I said, we're going to fix them. Because as Maywa said, it's okay. So now I can quote him now. All right, I think we're on our last one. And I don't think that I've talked about this shortcut enough, so I want to remember to say the shortcuts when I do them, especially for this pulling the art out. Yeah, but it does give you a new, like a brand new a fill if you refill it. But if it's filled already and you're just pulling the parts around, if it's glued together, like if you're not what do you call that? If you're not separating your line and your fill, if you're not finding gaps, you're fine. They are moving together and it's working like it should. But if you're finding that there's gaps in the lines and the fill, and all of a sudden you've got extra composites, or not composites, extra contours, like just kind of adding, sometimes it can turn into a bit of a messy process, and that's when you can turn on your show strokes, and then you'll kind of see sometimes those things start to add up, and then you might want to clean it up. But again, it's a learning process. So if you were working in animation, that's probably a step that you want to be really, really careful about. But if you're just sitting at home trying to figure this out, you're still like working on a rig, or like this your first rig, your second rig, your third rig, something that you don't have to be super worried about, but it's always something to like work up to. It's kind of like an advanced goal. Uh, yeah, that's how I would probably describe that. Okay, so now we've got, I'm gonna actually delete that point. I'm gonna pull that one out again. Okay. All right. Maybe delete that one too. Oh, what's going on? All right. So to fill this again with the shortcuts, you can just hit D and then I, and then you select it again. Or maybe I have to go back to my black arrow select tool, which is Alt S. So you can delete that, and then that is a quick way to do that fill. Okay, and then I'm gonna hide that, and I want to go to, I think it's this part of the hair, and we're just gonna finish up these. Right here, we've got some sharp edges. So deactivate this. I think it's actually this one that I want. Okay. Question: is there a way to change a point on your shape to have disconnected tangents so that you can change one tangent at a time? Okay. Is there a way to change a point on your shape so that you have disconnected tangent? What is a tangent? What do you mean by tangent? Tangent to me means usually means that there's a lot of pieces in one spot. So is that what you mean? Is there a way to change a point on the shape to have disconnected tangents? You can change. So you are mentioning like if there's a lot, if I am understanding this correctly, like if there's a lot of really close ones. Is that the question? Harmony is so interesting. The more I was starting to train in different locations, the more I realized the language and the lingo is so unique to each studio that I started to get almost confused trying to keep up. So sorry, the lines on the side of the, oh, okay, yes, you let that curve. Yes, the Bezier, the handles. We just call them handles, actually. But yes, so. Well, I'll change it right here, actually. So I went over this last time. Now, this one I want to be careful because I know if I go back and look at the front view real quick. Okay, so I want this to be sharp, and I don't want to change the top line, but the bottom line's hidden. So that means I want to keep the top line good, and I can change what's going on right here. So I'm going to pull this one in. And then, yeah, we talked about this, I think, last week, but you can, if you hit Alt, you can break the handles. So that lets you break them so you can get right angles. And then if you also kind of turn it back into a seesaw, they usually connect back up. The other thing that you can do, so although if I do it, I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. If you hit Alt and double click, you can remove the handles altogether, which is kind of handy sometimes, especially when you're working with a lot of right angles and like close things, and you don't, or if you don't want any curves to your lines at all. Actually, that's a good tip. And then to bring them back out, you just hit Alt again and hold down, and they will pop right in there. All right. So how do I get? Let's delete these two because I don't want this to change too much. And I think this one I'm going to delete. And I want that handle. And actually, I don't want this one. Oh, come on. Break. There we go. So this one I won't change too much. I'll probably leave it the way it is, bring the design back to the original, so the front view, just so that I'm not changing the actual design. And then to do that, I'm just going to pull that peg right out. And now you can see that my design goes back to where it was. And that's because we did not touch the actual design's peg. And then my slide peg still works. So when I activate that, I could look at my design and my character side by side real quick. And then I'm just going to deactivate that again so that I'm looking at my design. And here we go. All right. So here now I can see how I want this curve to kind of create this pinch. So it's going to be a tight curve. Let's see. This one I can change because it's hidden. So we can have some fun there. Let's see. I almost want to leave it the way it is because I don't want to. Yeah, we'll leave it like that. That's pretty good. All right, let's go back into our design. And I think that's it. I think that's all my drawings are done. So that was a very quick finish up of the drawings. Yeah. All right. And then I might just smooth out this line just because I kind of want to. Although I have two. Just want one curve. I've learned to figure out how the program works, especially when you get into the Beziers and the curves. I've tended to kind of figure out what the program does. I kind of let the program do what it's going to do, but then I've always developed my tactics and my methods and all my tips and tricks around like what I can expect the computer to do, and that way I'm not fighting the program because I think that you can spend a lot of time fighting the program. So I try not to focus on that too much. I know what the program's going to do after I make 100 mistakes, and then it's like, okay, what can I do to kind of get around it and use it to my benefit? So that's kind of my approach to this whole process. So yeah, so I think Bezier curves are a really good example of that. I also will turn the contour editor on and off because sometimes that gets in the way. If I want to just move something really, really small, that snapping tool can really get in the way. So I'll tend to leave it. And then let's see what else. All right, so I think that's good. I'm starting to feel like our designs are done and we get to start engineering. But as I mentioned, we'll do a quick recap. We will do a quick recap. So this question came to me through LinkedIn, and again, you can message me if you're doing this in your own time, in your spare time, because I'm noticing that we are getting quite a few views outside of these hours. So that's awesome. I appreciate that, of course. But yeah, if you're following along and you have a question, feel free to shoot it to me on either LinkedIn or Instagram, because I can answer them while I'm here too. You can be proactive. That's like my favorite thing. Let's be proactive in rigging and learning how to do this stuff. So feel free. I'm also doing help courses. So on Thursdays at the same time, you can drop into. I have a meeting where we can meet. And you can buy those seats on my website, which is lindsaynoller.ca. And so if you need more in depth, if you need hands-on help, we are about to get into rigging, and some engineering. So it might be a little bit more useful if you need more time. But if it's a quick question, feel free, send it to me on LinkedIn, send it to me on Instagram, and we'll talk about it. And if I can help you in the moment, I will. And then I'll definitely try to address any other questions in here. So we did have a question from someone who's been watching along. And that question was, when I was drawing, I was moving some layers around. So I wanted to kind of go over that and make sure that the reason why I was doing things is a little bit clear. We talked a little bit about naming earlier. And again, for the carrot, for you, you can kind of go in and name these pieces, anything that makes sense to you, and use your body as a reference. Like, you wouldn't want to go into a character and start labeling things that didn't make sense, because it just makes it so much harder for you to create the character, and then it would be a nightmare to pass it off to an animator and have them look for the face. If the face is all of a sudden I don't know, labeled, couch for whatever reason, or carrot. Like, you want to be a little bit more specific and use your body as a template. I'm always telling people to use your body as a template, because you know your body as well as anybody. So, or well, maybe not as anybody, but your body better than anybody else. So yeah, use it as a template, and then it's a really good thing, especially for pivot points, because you can all of a sudden where your elbow. I think I need to move that little window. But you know where your elbow is, and you know where your wrist is, and you kind of know how that works. So if you're wearing a bracelet, which I'm not wearing a bracelet, but if you're wearing a bracelet, it would be attached to your wrist. If you had I'm wearing a t-shirt right here, so it is attached to my shoulder, if you think about it that way. So little things like that in rigging, that's where you want to start to think like that. You want to start to think, that song, like it's Halloween, so the head bones connected to the I don't actually know the song, but the head bone's connected to the collarbone's connected to the, I don't know, shoulders. Like little things like that. If you start to think about skeletons in that way, then you'll catch on. It'll work. All right. So once again, naming convention, as long as it makes sense, as long as it's clear. You want to have, okay, we've got another question. Hang on. You want to make sure that you stick to some sort of consistency. For me, I find that since I've been labeling my nodes with capital letters, I notice that in my everyday typing, I'm always putting like random capital letters into everything. Like it's just now it's like muscle memory for me, and it's kind of hard to break the habit, even though I try. So just be aware of that, little things like that. They'll creep up into your life. But yeah, as long as naming makes sense to you, then that's good. The other thing is that for your drawing nodes in your first view of your character, it's just really important uh, that your layering is exact. It's precise. So what that means is, and the hair is a good example, and I'll get to this question about the hair in a minute. I don't want to lose my thought. Um, so the hair is a really good example. So let me just pull this. Let me pull this in front. So if I was Kade and my hair, you can see that I'm pulling my hair in front of my glasses. So technically we're doing something where we want to have our layers layered, but we also want our rig to be from head to toe, and it goes from face to head to toe, and that's just to make it easy to for the animator to work the network. So I can set up some backdrops right now so that we can kind of see that really clearly. But when we get into little pieces like this, and like the hair is a great example, or the carrot hair, the fringe, whatever you want to call that. Um, the hair is in front of the face. So I've pulled my hair in front of my face. And so the next thing behind that would be my glasses. And then you get into my nose. And then you get into my eyes. And then if you think about the layering of your eyes, you can kind of, if I get in close, you've got like your eyebrow. And then that's when you think about, you've got like the rock. Like, what's this face that he makes? Like, oh, like that. Like, whenever you get characters that do that eyebrow thing and you're like, oh, I'm angry, your eyebrow is in front of your eyes. So then you get behind your eyebrow and then you're in your eye. And then you've got your pupil, your iris, and the eye white. So these layerings become really specific. But again, we're all like, we're human, we're universal. Most of the time, we're universal. So you can kind of start to think of layering like that. So when you get into the actual layering of your character on the first view, it's really important that this is just kind of laid out in a way that makes sense and is consistent. And this is the way that I've been doing it because it's very universal throughout all studios. Sometimes you'll get somewhere and they'll do it backwards. But those are little things that you can learn in a couple of rigs. You kind of pick up those specific things, but the general information that you wanna remember is right. So we use a backdrop, and I set up a hotkey for this. So Control Shift D. So this is an eye, but we'll do face. And let's see, the face this is the mouth. This is the face. Okay, so here's the face. And then this is the fringe. Where's the head of the character? That's this. Okay, so actually, this is the face. This is the head of the character. And then we've got hair. All right. So this is like the first level of layering. The composite bars really help organize these things into larger chunks. So again, if you just have, let's say you just had one composite. It's kind of like when you read a book, you've got chapters, you've got paragraphs, and then you've got sentences. If you think about it like that, it's a little bit easier. So the character itself is a book. The head would be the chapter, and then the paragraphs would be like the face, the head, and the hair. And then the sentences could be, or the words could be the actual drawings themselves. So if you were to remove all of these composite bars and you had all your drawings rushing into one composite, this one composite just becomes really overwhelming. So I try to avoid that. I like to break my composites into a maximum of 10 to 12 drawing nodes. And again, when I first set up the character, I use the composites as like a shortcut to basically add a bunch of drawings. Because when I first started, I would just go add a drawing, name it, add a drawing, name it, add a drawing, name it. Oh, that's wrong. Let me go back. Add a drawing, name it. Add a drawing, name it. And then you plug them in all at once, or not all at once. It's like one after the other. So it can be a very time consuming job, time consuming skill when you're doing it all like that. So this was my shortcut on how to create 10 nodes and then duplicate them a whole bunch. So, and that is where I made my first mistake. So I did forget one step in that process. So again, we'll fix that on Monday. All right. So I think that is it for the layering. Oh, there's one more, I guess. which is I kind of talked about it with my hair in front of my face. But when you have all of the composites right, then you can make sure that you have all your drawings right. And it's okay to go in and move things around. So let's see, like if I want to bring this piece in front of this piece, which I don't need to, but if I wanted to, I could. It's there. Um, you just want to avoid crossing these lines. So I have one here that's crossed. So let's see, what are these? These are the front shadow, and then this is the second shadow. So because this one's the back shadow, I'm actually going to cross that line. This just creates a really clean network. If you've got all these streams crossed at the very beginning of the stages, you have to think like in harmony, problems start to compound. So in rigging, you're at the beginning of the process. You're at the beginning of the pipeline. So you want to try to have as few issues in your rig so that when it goes to animation, because they're also going to create issues in the rig or issues in a scene. So all these problems kind of start to compound. So as it travels from rigging to animation to compositing to rendering to effects, you start to like if you've got a problem in yours, it's going to be in the next three. So you just kind of want to like mitigate as many of those as possible. And so keeping your rig clean and organized. It also helps when you're learning the process to be like really clean in your network, because then all of a sudden you kind of know what's going on. When we get into engineering, it'll become way more obvious because all of those little nodes and those connections, they're going to multiply where the rig starts to get bigger. And so you kind of have to know what each connection is doing. And that's the hardest part. And that's why I call it engineering. We are cartoon engineering right now. So hang tight. We're going to get there. And I think that's it for my recap. Is there any questions on my recap? And I'll answer this question while I'm waiting. But is there any questions on the recap from anyone in the audience? So we got, what is the advantage of making the hair drawings meet at the same point as the back of the head? Will we be reusing or duplicating those drawings when we go to the rear view? So the point of that is to just extend the amount of animation in the front view. Like if you was to get scared, like let's think of it as like it's all forethought. It's all pre-planning. If this was your very first rig and if you skip that step, it's fine. But because I've done this a few times, and because I'm trying to show my process, and that's actually become a part of my process, this is just an extra step that you can take. And what it does is it allows the front view to have a more complete design. So when you're working on a rig and you're working on a design where like when you're working on a front view, there's always little hidden pieces. Like we can't see. I could also go into and fix this. I didn't actually fix, I think I fixed the corner piece here, but I didn't fix the edges of the actual part of his hair that hangs over his face, which I could have, which I still can. But when you're looking at a front view, you can't see the back view. So you have to, as the rigger, you have to fill that piece in. It's kind of like that's kind of like a piece of the puzzle that you have to use your best judgment to fill. That literally is your job. So what I do is I go and I reference the other angles of the design, and then I bring it into the parts that I can't see. So I'm trying to think let's see if there's another example. I think the hair is usually a really good example, and hair is also really important. If you want to talk about what's important, like a whole character is important, but there are elements of the rig that will be more important than others. So for any character, the face is really important. Eyes eyes and mouth are probably the most important, and that's because you think of close-ups and like those scenes with the eyes well up and oh, I just dropped my ice cream. Oh, it's the worst day ever. Like that's kind of what animation. I feel like I almost made myself cry. I'm such a good actress. But you get into these moments where you get these ultra close ups, and like these eyes, they have to flutter with all the water effects that are coming out. So if there's a kink in your artwork, It's going to show. And think about how powerful TVs are now. So you've got these ultra HK, ultra Ultra K. I don't even know what they are. My TV is so old. But we have all these uh, ultra TVs now. So, and when animation is being filmed by directors, you know what they're using? Like full movie screens. So they'll take the animatic, or maybe not the animatic, but they'll take the new edit, like the latest edit, and the working animation, and they'll blow it up on a huge screen, and they will look for these things. So when you're like I said, there's practicing animation, there's animation for people that are not working unprofessional settings, and then there's professional settings. So when you get into professional settings, everything's under a microscope. So the face is super important. The hair is a part of that. It's super important. And then you get into other details like like you just want to make sure everything else is working well and looks great. And again, we'll get into some of that. Like there are some fun little things in Harmony called anti-aliasing. That's like your arch nemesis in Harmony. So when we get into rigging engineering, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But these little blips in the design, not the design, but like the rig, they show on screen. So you want to be very, very specific. And like very careful when you get into those kinds of things. So it'll come. It'll come. We're getting into this very slowly, so this is a day by day process for us. But you're gonna see. So back to that real quick question. Yeah, they're just bringing in the actual design and bringing it into the parts that we can't see. Okay. Activate. Okay. And also, just so you know, I think it's totally fine to talk to yourself while you're working. I think that I used to when I was on the floor. I'm pretty sure. Uh, so yeah, definitely. This almost feels natural to me. I appreciate the questions. Okay, it is 5 o'clock. The dog is being very good. She's pooped from her lick mat. I don't want to say her name, but she's kind of right there. Yeah, she's doing good. So it's 5 o'clock. We can keep going. We're going to start to get into engineering, and we're going to start small. We're going to start with the eye. So we can go here, go into the first eye drawing. Again, we're using groups for the eyes. We're going to be using static transformations as well for the eye. So we'll use that first. Okay. All right, so this is a great assignment just to build a head to do a lip sync. That would be cool. All right, let's see. This is all new to me, so feel free to ask questions. And I mean, not training itself, but training on Twitch. So feel free to ask questions, and let's see how this goes. All right, so something that we did touch on last week was we started to talk about the placement of the drawings. So within each one of these drawing nodes, there are 4 layers within for the artwork. So you can see them here. We've got the overlay, the line art, the color art, the underlay. They each have a nice little icon, and then that correlates with like the position. You can take these and you can scramble them. But I recommend that you don't do that, mainly because for the same reason that for the first view, I like all the streams to be clean. It is less confusing. You have to think, well, I shouldn't say you have to think. You can think whatever you want. I have always thought that the program is difficult. So since the program is difficult, don't fight the program. Let the program be the program, and then work with that. So you can move your layers around, but I tend to leave the overlay on top, the line art, and then the color art, and the underlay at the bottom. And so I think that's a really smart way to work. Now, another way to represent that We're going to see it here. Let's see, did I put it in? I'm gonna have to change it into the eye. Let me deactivate these quick. All right, so if I go to my eye drawing, I have right now in my eye drawing, I have everything on the line art layer. So everything is here. And again, the way that I work is with the preferences, and I'll show you that one more time, because this is where I find it to be really important, because we're about to start jumping through layers. So if you double check in your camera tab of your preferences, and again, this should be set to rigging, I have my washed out background set to enable in camera drawing mode. So when my scene is in a drawing tool and drawing mode, it washes out the background. And I've got it set to the default, which is 70%. That's fine. And then with those preferences at the very beginning of the stream, it's like the first thing that I have to do is I have to turn these two drawings off or drawings on. And it lets the feature work the way that I like it to. So let's show you what that kind of looks like. Because we're jumping through these layers, I am going to show you what that looks like now. Again, we've kind of talked about it last week, but I probably brushed through it pretty quickly. So I'm just going to hit Control X, and I'm going to paste it on the color art layer like that. If I turn this eyeball on here, I can see my line art and my color art at the same time. So I'm going to do that. And then if you want to test this, because it's good to kind of see how this works, especially for cutout rigging, this is a really good feature. And this is the part that you kind of have to practice and get used to. And that's totally normal, is getting into, I think someone was asking about the refilling. Is it better to refill your artwork? In this case, yes. In the last case, when we were just filling our artwork, it was fine to leave it as it was, and you can just either keep it filled and kind of move it around. It would stay connected. But since we're starting to work with different levels, this stuff is very, very specific. It's very sensitive. A computer doesn't really understand nuance. It works in like binary, like it gets very specific. So if any little thing is off, chaos will ensue. And like I said, those problems will start to compound. So it gets as in depth as in the drawings, as we're going to see. And I'll show you what I mean right now. So this takes practice. So with this button on, and this is the preview all art layers, because I've taken my artwork and I copied it from the line art to the color art. If I grab these beziers, if I grab these handles, oh, look at that. It's not, see here, now we're disconnected. So you can see here that it's very disconnected, and it's because I forgot to turn on another tool. But this is what we don't want. So what we wouldn't want is to like go back and fix it. Like this is not good. This is where we would run into trouble. So this looks right, but if I turn on my strokes, and then I go to this button right here, which is apply to the line art and color art. So here, if I zoom in, I can see that my contour points are off. So that's where you get into problems. This is where you get into trouble. I could take this, and I could go like this, and it looks good, but my handles are actually still off. So if I was to grab, oh, this actually looks like it almost looks like it's working perfectly. It would be really cool if in Harmony 22 this was a new feature and I didn't know. This was fixed. I don't know if that's the case, but here you can see a little bit better. See, there's two contour points here, so there's two handles. So they are, one is being affected and one is not being affected. So this is where you start to get into problems. When we get into the limbs, this is actually very, very important. In this case, it's just an example. So I'm going to undo all that. I'm just going to okay, and I'm going to recopy. So turn that off quickly. Delete this. Color it, Control X, Control V. And now when I turn this back on, and this is already on, when I go to my select tool or my contour tool, these pieces are connected. So even though we're on separate layers, you do want your artwork to act as one. And that's so if an animator has to go in and sometimes they'll redraw. You never really know what an animator is going to do. So sometimes they'll redraw, sometimes they'll reuse artwork, sometimes they'll just wipe out a whole chunk of a rig and redraw something. They have more options. They can kind of fix things as to where their skill sets are and how they've learned in the past. But when you're setting it up, it's just kind of good to take this caution. So be extra cautious. All right, so we've got a question. Did you copy the fill color to the color layer or did you cut and paste? I cut and pasted. Copy the fill layer to the color. Yes, I cut and pasted. Yeah, I find that works. If you cut and paste, here's another trick. If you cut and paste, let me see, Control D, is it doing? Here. Copy. Here's the thing. So when you are copying and pasting too many things at once, sometimes you can lose track of how many times you've copied and pasted. But what it does is mathematically, it's always 2 up and 2 over. So I've done too many here. So I'll undo. But let me copy it one more time. Copy, view. So this, and I'll change it. So as long as I don't change anything in my zooming, so as long as I don't change my camera angle and then my zoom tool, if you hold down Shift and go up and over, it's always 1 up and 1 over. Sorry, not 2 up and 2 over. It's always 1 up and 1 over. If you change your zoom in, then it changes the way that it moves in the camera. But as long as it's connected, it's good to go. I'll delete that. Okay, there's another question. Do you ever use create color art and line art, or do you find it quicker to copy and paste? I find it quicker to copy and paste, but I have used the create color art from line art. The other reason I don't use it is because it creates a stroke line, and I don't tend to use stroke lines because it creates more vector points and more contour points, and so it can kind of bog down the system, or it can create like things that you don't notice. Yeah, invisible contour points, invisible lines that you could be pushing around without noticing if you don't have your show strokes on. So I tend to avoid strokes most of the time. But it does work and it can be helpful. I know I've used it on specific productions in some cases. But I think what happened was we upgraded the program and I had to reset my preferences and I never reset that shortcut specifically. And I think that I just went back to copying and pasting, or yeah, cutting and pasting. All right. So now let's bring in our layers, our actual layers. So we've got our overlay. This is my favorite tool. I don't know what this is called. If anybody does anybody know what this tool is called? When you hit enter in the node view, you get your node search menu drop down box. I don't know if it has I'm sure I know it has a name. I should know it. I should know the name. But this is my favorite tool within the program. This is like the newest thing. So to help you find, whoops, what I just add? Nope, I don't want that. So line art. You can also, if you're using an older version of Harmony, which probably has to be 17, art. And then the last one is underline. Hello. Okay. So this is something that we're going to set up real quick. And then we're going to reuse it. So essentially, when you have a drawing that's going in, let me deactivate the rest of these. So we're just focusing on the one. Essentially, when you have a drawing that is not hooked up to anything and it's going into a composite, you are oh, quick search. Maybe I don't think it's called quick search, but we can call it that. When you have a drawing node and it's disconnected from everything and it's getting plugged into a composite, it's essentially working exactly the same as if you were connected to all of these. I'm going to unplug this one for a bit just so that it's out of the way. So this, what I've got here, is exactly the same as what I just had with one. And we can add a composite here to make it easy or not. But this layering right here with all the nodes is the exact same as one, like one unconnected, disconnected line. So, or not disconnected, one hooked up line without any filters. And so because they take up so much space, what I like to do is I like to rename them. And then I've noticed that this has become something that's pretty popular. I also like to color them. And I'll show you why. So you can see here that I'm just saving space in my network. All of these drawing nodes are tiny, 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 and they take up half the space as they did. And I like to layer them right underneath the drawing. Sometimes you need an auto patch, so I can bring that in here as well. And I'm not going to explain what an auto patch is right now, but I am just going to bring that up just so that I can add the AP. So just trust me on this one. You need an auto patch, and I call it AP. I like to leave it right in the middle. You can connect it if you'd like. You don't have to. I will talk about auto patches, but I probably won't get to it. I might not get to it today. So they're there. But the other thing that I wanted to show you with these is I like to label them, like color code them. So Harmony has all these presets here. So I typically just start my overlay being light green, and then I go to my underlay, which is a dark green. And the reason for that is because it gives me a really quick way of telling and seeing at the node view, seeing the network, and then knowing exactly which layer I'm pulling from. So I just find it helps. So I also can bring them down to the custom colors. So there's my, oh, I forgot to hit enter. That's the important part. Hit OK. Okay, and then I can go to my line art, and I'm just going to pick this one. Hit OK. I'll space them out a little bit more so that they have a little more space. You can notice that the little color-coded parts, they stick around, which is why I'm adding them to the color pot. If you're using a Mac, you have to use a shortcut. I think that you have to hit Alt or Control, but take a look at all those keys on your keyboard. I think you have to press one of those buttons as you're pulling them through. And then I'm going to bring this one for the underlay, the darkest one. I might even make it a little bit darker. There we go. And then I'm going to hit OK and close. All right. So what this does is, yes, it brings, I guess it makes the little nodes a little bit bigger. But what it does is when you're far away from your node view, those colors really stand out. And so when you're kind of looking at your node view from far away, and again, if you're just using the software for the first couple of times, this could be something that you're not familiar with yet, and you can't really recognize the patterns. But with rigging, it's all about patterns, and it's all about like noticing all those little things. And eventually, these colors, if they're mixed up, they'll pop out at you. It's kind of weird. This is how I used to when I used to supervise. This is how this helped me get through rigs so much faster. It was actually a huge breakthrough for our crew when we were working on what show was that one? That was Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. We really needed help on some of those episodes because we had so many characters to build. So this was a huge, huge, huge help to kind of see these things work uh, in that way, in efficiency. Like this was an efficiency trick. There we go, Maywa. Thank you for the word. All right, so we've got our eye. And so in this case, I'm going to unplug the overlay and I'm going to unplug the underlay because I know there's no artwork there. And I know that because I only put artwork on the line art and the color art. So the overlay, underlay are blank, and the line art and color art have uh, artwork. So now what we're starting to do is we're starting to isolate those layers. So if I unplug the line art, my line art actually disappears. And then if I unplug the color art, that also disappears. So I can isolate my line art and then I can bring in my color art. And this is how we're going to start to work with cutters. So this is a really, really important step. This is something that you really want to make sure that you're making your best attempt to remember where you're drawing your artwork. That is something that's difficult for people when they're just starting to use the software. So don't be afraid if all of a sudden you're like, oh, where did I draw it? Oh, where's my artwork? That happens to everybody. I think that still happens to me. I know that if you go back in my first and second stream, you'll see me going like, oh, where did the artwork go? So that's definitely there. But yeah, all right. So we've got our eye, and so now we can bring in a cutter, and this is our first engineering tutorial. All right, so we're gonna go with our pupil. So what we want is, and you can always go back and look at the design too. We want our pupil to be behind the eye. And also notice that there's only a black line where the pupil is. So there's a little bit of engineering here. This is going to be a little bit of a trick. This will be fun to implement. So we want to use the cutter. We've got the two parts, the two nubs over here for the cutter, and then one at the bottom. Now you'll notice that all the nodes, you kind of have that same idea. We've got all these little nubbies. If the green ones make it really easy, that means they go to a peg. So when you see a green little nub like that, it means it connects to a peg in most instances. And then at the bottom, you've got the blue. So the blues can go to the composites, and then they can also go into the engineering components. This is kind of where we're going to start to build engines for the character. So that's how I'll probably start to refer to these little engineering bits and bobbles are the engines of the eye. So the cutter has two nubs at the top. So you can see where if you click on them, it'll tell you what you can connect to. So for the cutter itself, if you think about it like this, you can see that there's a little mask here. That's the actual mask. So you plug the mask into the side, and then you you bring the artwork through the center of the cutter. So if you hold down Alt, which is a really quick way to kind of pop these into your artworks, this is kind of something that we want to try. So, and this is where people start to get a bit nervous about trying. So you're not going to break it. You're not going to, the worst case scenario is you unplug everything and you bring it back to where it works. And then you try again. That's probably the number one thing that I see. People will freeze and then they won't try anything. So always try to bring it back to where it was. Take a break if you need it. Go get some water, go outside, go for a quick walk. There's no stress here. This is an animation, anime zen process. All right, so we are going to cut the pupil by the eye. Let me get back to the character here. All right, so the cutter can just pop right in here. And it's not working just yet, but the cutter is now connected to the pupil. We're cutting the pupil. So that's why we're connecting the cutter to the pupil. And then we are going to cut the eye cut the pupil by the eye. So the eye becomes the mask, which I don't think that's, if you're working with digital tools and masks and any sort of program, that's pretty typical. Now, the only thing that I'm going to warn against is when we connect our eye to the mask, you can see here that it's kind of um, the eye is kind of acting like a closed door. Like we can see the pupil behind it, but not in front of it. So that's not quite the mask we're looking for. We want to use an inverted mask, so we'll be able to see the pupil through the eye. So I'm going to double click on that mask, and that's the fastest way to get to your invert button. If you go into your layer properties, there is a little button here that you can turn on and off, but double clicking is the fastest. We used to also, before this was a thing, before we could double click and see the mask really easily, we used to color code our cutters because every cutter looked the same. So we had a dark red cutter and a like a bright red cutter color. And that kind of helped us pick out in the network in the same way that we color coded here. But since we've got these masks now, we don't have to do that. They stand out pretty much on their own. And you can see that it's working. You can add a peg. Sometimes I do add pegs. I like to add pegs at the very end, but when I start to work with stuff like this, I do like to add the peg so that I can just make sure that it's working the way that I want it. And it's getting close. It's getting close. You can see here that the cutter's working, but we've got some really cool things here where the eye is the eye line is only revealed when we see the pupil. So that's kind of like a double cutter that's happening. But right now I can't see that eye line right there either. So we kind of have a little bit of work to do here. So now that our cutter is working and our inverted cutter is set up, the one thing that we also want to kind of pay attention to, and this I've walked us into a trap here. So now that we're using layer filters, when we are using layer filters, you want to be a lot more specific in your networking tools. So the layer filters are art layers as well. You can call them art layers or layer filters. They have so many names. But now we're getting specific with our rig. So we want to stay specific. So right now when I'm pulling in from the eye to my cutter, I'm pulling this line and it's just like a general line, like a quick thing. And remember, this holds all the information for all of the layers. And in this case, it's not quite what we want. It's too much information. So you actually want to pull from the least amount of art possible. So if that makes sense, you want exactly what we need. This is the whole point of being specific. So the mask is actually going to come from the color art. So here now we can see that it's cut from the center of the fill. And so this is another reason why I like to work with transparent lines, if you will. So you can really see how that works. With the line tool, your contour editor or the contour line runs from the center. If we were using the paint tool, the contour edges would be on the side. But that's a lot harder to use with rigging, cutout rigging, because that's where you get into a lot of issues with anti-aliasing, which I mentioned earlier. That's our arch nemesis. We want to make sure that we're not causing any anti-aliasing within the program. So when you're working with the color art fill and the line is being filled right to the center of the line, that actually hides any anti-aliasing problems. So this is the best way to use a cutter. You want to pull from the fill of the object. So and it'll usually be the color art. Sometimes we use an underlay or an overlay for a cutter. In the case of the eyebrow, we'll get there. But for now, it's just pulling the art from the color art. And we also have to reevaluate some of our layering because we can see here that we can't see the full layer of the eye over the pupil. So this is where you want to pop that line in front. And this is why it's so important to make sure all your layers are clean, and all these streams are as clean as possible, because you want to start to make sure that they're perfect. This is the thing about rigging, is it starts to get perfect. So there we go. So now we have all our lines on top of everything. Our pupil can move around there. He can roll his eyes and say, "Oh, Mom, I've cleaned my room," or something. Okay, and so we'll keep going. The pupil itself did have a line, which is good. The eye also has a line. So what we can also do now, although I'm a bit nervous to do it, let's do it. Let's go for it. The pupil was doing something where, and I'll take a suggestion from the crowd right now. So what I want to do is I want to cut the line of the eye so that it's only seen where the pupil is. So I'm going to create a cutter, but where would I plug this cutter into? Those 4 nodes are additional drawing nodes, or are they a separate type of? They're a separate type of node. They correlate to the line art layers within the drawing. So they represent what's going on here: the overlay, the line art, the color art, and the underlay. So if you remember in our eye drawing, there's this line drawing on the line drawing and the color fill on the color fill. That's a very typical way of rigging, to keep your lines on your lines and your colors on your colors. So that's my question. Give you another couple seconds before I have to answer it myself. All right, so we got our cutter. So where do you hook up the cutter so that we are only seeing the line of the eye white where the pupil is, where the pupil intersects? 5 seconds, 4 seconds, 3 seconds, 2, 1. All right, I'm answering my own question. All right, so we got the cutter. We're going to hook it up to the eye line. So we're cutting the line. Again, we're being specific here. Yeah, cut the white by the pupil. We're cutting the line of the eye white of the pupil. So we've got the line art here of our eye, and then we're going to use the same mask, and we'll just bring that through to the pupil. So in this case, it does work, which I'm very grateful for. This is where I was a bit not sure if it was going to. If I take the alpha away from our line, you're going to see that a lot better. So there we go. You got your first little piece of engineering. Maywa, I bet you didn't even think we were going to do that when you were designing it. But I just noticed it and thought it was so cute. So let's see how that goes. All right, so I'm going to remove these. I'm going to reset them actually just by hitting R. I'll just do that. I won't remove them yet. All right, we got our Winkle. So this guy can come up front, actually. It does need to come up front. So in this case, because I'm doing that, I'm going to bring it over to the left side. All right, we got this. All right, what do we got? We got our eyelids. All right, so let's maybe do our eyelids next. I'll hide my Winkle. And so our eyelids are going to work really similar to what we just did with the pupil. We just want to make sure that they are above the pupil. So in this case, we've got a cutter. We can use another cutter. So real quick, where do you think that I'm going to hook up the cutter for the lower lids for the mask? What am I going to hook up to the mask? And we got a question here. You can answer my question while I read this question. I've seen some people make a template of just those few nodes already renamed to save having to do them every time. Yeah, that's my trick. They probably learned that somewhere from me along the lines. Isn't that pretty cool? I always think that's really cool. It's the first time I've seen the node colors, but I assume that will be saved as part of a TPL too. Yeah, we can. I was going to save them and just throw them at the top of the library, or not the library, at the top of my network. Because we can actually add a couple things to them. And then it just gives us like a quick reach. But I assume that will be saved as a part of the TPL2. It's probably something you already do, but I thought I'd mention it. Yeah, it is. And it's really quick way for the artists to, we're always trying to save time. Like that's the number one thing. Like, how do we save time? How do we default to quick methods, essentially? Like, that's what we're always trying to reprogram ourselves to do, especially since the industry itself is super innovative. Things are always changing. And so, yeah, we're always trying to reprogram ourselves to have the quickest default mode. So yes, we could be adding a template library. I haven't created a library for the show yet. This character. You hear that car going off? It always freaks me out that it's mine, but I don't think it's mine's in the back. Let me just double check here. Yeah, okay. That's not my car. All right. Can you hear that car? Yeah. So I haven't created a library. But when we're done here, I'm just going to duplicate it and just put it off to the side of the network so that we can copy and paste quickly. When you put it in a template and the template into the library, it's kind of like you pull it out at the beginning and then you make a bunch of copies and just throw them in there. Okay, and so you're also answering the question. Yeah, is it an inverted? Because an inverted cutter cutting the lower lid by the color. Yeah, exactly. So it's pretty simple. Again, we're using the same mask as we did for the pupil, and we're going to cut here. All right, and so you can see as we're going, like we're fixing problems, but we're also creating our own problems. And so this is where this is really important. This is the important parts. Like, this is the part where you always want to backtrack to where it was and how it was working. If you make a mistake, if you can, never get afraid to try it again, because every time you run through these processes, you're going to learn so much. You're going to learn how to do it faster, and you're going to really learn the relationship between these pieces, and that's really what's important. So as the question mentioned, let's just duplicate these really quick. So yes, I copy these, and I'll throw them up here so that we use them, and I'll also take them outside of our network so that we can use them there too. And then we can jump back here, and so you're starting to see too that the composite for the eye is getting, I don't have a lot of layers here yet, but you can start to see these blue lines are acting like spaghetti. So this is where I always start to say, okay, let's take a moment and let's clean up that view so that it's easier for the user, the person who's working with the software, to really get that bird's eye view of what's happening, because it becomes very important to keep a really clean node view. So let's just do that real quick here. I like to keep my cutters directly under the thing that I'm cutting, and then I kind of let my masks be the thing that drives over. And then I'm also going to bring my composite down. But the other thing that I want to point out, I'm going to make more space here for a quick second. It's going to be too much space, but it's okay. What is this one? This one, we've got a cross line here. What did we cross? This one and this one. This one's not being used. This one's not being used. These two right here are, okay, this is the line art. Okay, so, and because I'm using the color art to cut all these things, and if I select that layer, you can see that this line is darker than the rest of them. You can see that it's being used in all these cutters. Now, because I have done this before, I'm going to recommend and I'm going to suggest that we get even more organized, because even within an eye network, we're going to start to become a lot, it's going to, like, you can see how far I had to bring my composite down here just to kind of see where the lines were connecting. And I might not necessarily want to work with that much space in the network. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take this composite and I'm going to really quickly copy it. And I'm going to make another composite specifically for the items that are getting cut within the eyeball. So I'm going to reconnect the pupil the two lids, and then we also have, this is the eye. I'm gonna leave the eye, but here I want the eye to be on top of the upper lid, so, or all the lids. So actually, or do I? I don't know. All right, we've got our first design conundrum, so we'll figure out what we want there. So maybe I'll leave it where, yeah, I'll leave it on top because that makes more sense to me. Like I said, go with your intuition when you're asking yourself these questions. The line on top makes more sense. So let's leave it that way, and then we'll see what this looks like when the eyes are closing. Maybe we do something special there, but we don't have to decide that right now. We got about 20 minutes left here, so let's keep working on this eyeball. One of the other things that we can do is we can actually start to limit and cut down on our cutters. So since we used a composite here, and we have all these cutters going up to up to this composite, and these three cutters are being cut by the same thing, we can actually just take one of these cutters and we can cut that by the color art. And now these three cutters are unnecessary. Ta-da! All right. So I'm gonna hide these upper lids. Actually, let's do this. Let's give them quick pegs. To add multiple pegs at once, you can just hit Control-Shift-P when you've got multiple drawings selected. So, but let's give them like a quick. Oh, look at he's so cute. This is where we start to have a lot of fun and your character starts to come alive. You can really see it. Oh, he's adorable. All right. So now we've got little kissy face. Now we've got our little character here. And I'm just going to deactivate the lid so I can see the whole drawing. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to work on the eyebrow. So for our eyebrow, this is one of those drawings where we're going to have to add some hidden artwork. And so if you remember my rock impersonation earlier with my eyebrows, it was like the whatever he could do. I can't do the other one. Can anybody do both eyebrows? Can anybody do the thing where you get the other eyebrows going up and down? I can only do one. I can't do the other. But I'm super curious if you can. All right. And if you can, you should probably just send a selfie to my Instagram and we'll do our eyebrow, we'll do eyebrow selfies together. But anyway, yeah, so you got your eyebrow. And so I'm going to give this a peg real quick as well. And so what we want this to do is we want this to come down and we want it to cut the top part of the eye. So we don't want it to see, this is one of those hidden tricks. This is very standard in animation so that when the character is fluctuating these eyebrows, the animator doesn't have to take care of any of the cutting of these. It'll be done for them. It's an automated process that we're going to set up. So I'm going to get rid of this or reset it. And so for us to do that, for us to be able to do that, we need to go into the artwork. And I'm going to take this and I'm just going to copy it to the underlay. Let's put it there. And I'm going to take another line. Let me see if I can copy view. Again, I'm a big fan of reusing artwork, so I just kind of steal what I have. Oh, I need a handle. Oh, she's gonna bark. I'll turn my snap to contour on. And all I'm gonna do right here is I'm adding a cutter. Oh, okay. Yes? You want this? Can you please, can you lay down? Can you lay down? Can you lay down? Lay down, stay. Good girl. She does so good. All right, so we're just creating the shape here. And I'm going to add a new color here, out at the bottom. And we're going to call this one Cutter. Cutter, color. Oh, I didn't type anything. Cutter, And for this, I like to go with the very standard green color. Where's the greens? There we go. Go to yellow. Then we go to the green. So I tend to go with like the greens, green for a cutter, but the world is your oyster. Just be consistent. All right, so we got our cutter, and if I go back to my eyebrow drawing, where'd it go? There we go. I'm just going to fill it with that green. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the line, but I'm actually going to keep the eyebrow color because that's actually my mask. So if you remember, we used our layers to isolate the layers in our eye. We're going to do that for our eyebrow as well. So again, as a new user, if you're just starting out with Harmony rigging, you want to remember what layers you're using because we are now going to interpret the drawings into the network. So we can steal all 4 of these. Oh, Mabel, you gotta go lay down. No, this is not a good system. We're gonna have to figure something out here. This is not. You can't just demand TRATs. Can you go lay down? Can you go lay down? Hey, sit, lay down. Stay. 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 Okay. All right, so where do we draw our artwork? So we have our artwork on our, I'm going to get rid of the overlay and the underlays. Oh boy. Hey, no. Can you lay down, please? No. Can you lay down on your mat? Hey, can you lay down on your mat? Come on, no. Can you lay down on your mat? Hey, good girl, stay. Stay. Good girl, stay. All right, so we're gonna hook up our, oh, I got rid of the wrong one. All right, so when we hook up our line art, you're gonna see that our cutter has disappeared, but that is just because the underlay is, it's still in the drawing, we just haven't hooked it up to be in the network. So all these blue streams, all these connections, they're really running through the character. So if you can literally follow them. So they jump out of here, they go out of this group, down to this composite, down to the multiport, and all the way to here. So this display here is, because it's hooked up to being seen through that display, the default display, it will be seen once it's hooked up in the composite. But since it's not hooked up in the composite, we can't see it. But it doesn't mean it's not there. So now you can hook up the underlay. Whoop. And if you wanted to hook it up so that you could see it, you just hook that up to the composite. But that's not what we're using a cutter for. The cutter is a special tool. So we're not going to hook that up to the composite. We just want to use it so that it cuts the eyeball. So if we bring our eyebrow down, you can see right now it's not cutting the eyeball. And so we want to do that. So we're going to need another cutter. So I'll just copy and paste. Copy and paste. And then we're going to cut the eye pieces. So, all right, so I cut the, what I ended up cutting. I ended up cutting the eye white color. Yeah, and you can see that it's disappeared there. But it looks like the inverted cutter might be doing us some wrong. So let's change that right now to a regular cutter. And now you can see that the eyebrow is effectively cutting into the eye. The only thing is this is a really slow process because now we're going to have to go in and add a cutter to everything that we've cut. Now we've already kind of set something up like this earlier, so I'm gonna ask. Do you have an example? Can you give me a shortcut here? Do you think that there's a way to use less cutters? Is what I'm asking. Mabel, come on, give us a minute. She's like clockwork. Wow. Okay. I know, baby. We're almost done. Almost done. No. 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 We didn't. All right. So we're going to use the cutter and oh, Mabel. Okay, we're going to use the cutter and what am I cutting this? The underlay. And instead of going in and cutting everything one by one like this, we're going to use another composite. And we should also start to label our composites so that we know what this one is. So this is where we start to get tricky when we are adding a composite, but we've already got networking. So we want to really pay attention to what we're doing here. And hopefully somebody doesn't come back and start barking at me because I want to make sure that I'm clear. I'm describing this one. All right, so the way that I like to do this is I like to take the composite and you can plug it in. You also don't have to plug it in. I'm going to plug it into the one side of the composite, and I want to transfer all the lines that's I want to transfer all the lines from the one, the eye, from all the eye pieces here in line, so as I see them. So I did the first one, so that's this one here, and then I know I've got this one here, and then this one brings me to the eye line. So I'm going to do these three connections. And now I know I can see everything, and I'm just going to take, instead of these cutters here, oh, Mabel. Hey, come here. Can you sit? All right, so now we got our cutter. Now we're going to hook this cutter up to the underlay. So now it cuts the whole eye as one. And now the composites are really nice because it starts to organize your the smaller pieces of your node view. And again, it's a lot easier to work with a composite that has like 3 or 4 connectors in it than it is when it's maxed out at like 10 or 20. And again, I always avoid 20. If there's 10 connections in a composite, I'm always looking for reasons to add them. So it's kind of like breaking your rig into sentences, like if you reference it as a book. So we could get into smaller pieces. Oh, I'm gonna have to distract her for the last 10 minutes. All right, so now we've got our eye composite here, and we can start to name these. So I'm going to go into the layer properties and just call this one eye composite. And then this one will be the pupil composite. Mabel, come on. We're almost done. No. Please. Go. Go lay down. Go lay down. We're going to have to work on a bed command. All right, pupil. No, go lay down. Hey, go lay down. Go lay down. Hey, go lay down. Lay down. Down. Lay down. No. Lay down. Angsty teenager. Okay. Okay. All right. So, all right, we got our eyebrow in place. So we're gonna deactivate that. It's looking good. So our eye is almost done. We got one last piece here, which is the Winkle. And so this little cutie right here, it actually doesn't need a cutter at all. And the only thing that I would like to do is instead of using, I go to the line art, you can see here, instead of using this color right here, I'm going to change it so that it works kind of like the eyebrow. And I'm just going to create the cutter color and I'm going to unplug it. So that way we don't see it when it looks like this. You can see it's kind of over It's overlapping the blush and the little carrot whiskers. So I'm going to treat it exactly like the eyebrow, and I'm just going to cut that. I'm just going to put it on the underlay. I'm going to change that color. And I'm going to use the same idea. And that is the first network that we have. And in this case, we've got our, I'm going to change this one to be our eye whites. And then I'm going to add one more composite because I know that I need it. Oops, right here. So the Winkle, we don't want to cut itself. So I'm going to cut the entire eye. Or maybe actually I can get away with not having that composite. There we go. Yeah. So now when the wink, it needs a peg. Well, now that works too. We get that little cute little cheek that comes up. Reset. Mabel, no. No, look, lay down. Lay down. No. Lay down. Right, we'll make sure we save our scenes. All right, and then let's see. Well, that looks like our eye is almost done. So we've got a couple minutes. Let's see about this. Let's look at this. So we have to kind of make a decision. This is where we would go to the designer. If Maywell is still in the chat, he can let us know what he prefers. I'm gonna hide the Winkle. This is a really good example too of why we need that blank drawing in the drawing node itself for the animator to turn it off. We're adding it, but it's not quite in the default view, so we want to get rid of it. And so what we can do now is we can decide, we have just enough time to decide what we want to do about this line here when the eyelids are closed. So let me reset these. And so because we've got this little engineering piece right here, and I'm going to deactivate this cutter. It's not this one. Is it this one? Yeah. So when we're cutting the eye by the pupil right here, it's on top of everything, and so we can see, we can still kind of see it, but it's not totally complete. So we have to decide if we want to have the whole complete eye when the eye is totally closed. But let's see, what do we want? What do we want that to look like? So we could try, and this is where this is a bit of an advanced technique, to be honest. This is something that I didn't foresee. So let's think about it now. And we want, I like that the eye line is showing where the pupil is, and I like that it's not when the eye white's there. So let's see if we can bring the pupil. Hey, I need you to lay down. Hey, can you lay down, please? On your bed. No, on your bed. Come on. Got this. On your bed. Up. Up. Lay down. Come on. Oh, lay down. We're going to finish what we're doing. Lay down. Why don't you get on your bed? Up. Lay down. Lay down. Down. Hey, lay down. Hey, lay down. Stay. Good girl. Stay. Stay. Okay. I don't know if that's going to work, but we'll try. All right, so we tried this, and let's try something else. So I'll take this cutter out. Now I want, right now the line is seen where at everywhere, 100%. There's nothing affecting that right now. So let's say the line is running through this cutter here. If we deactivate it, we can kind of see what's affecting it. Oh, Mabel, come on. Can I please get through the last few minutes of this? All right. This is the challenges of rigging on the job with a dog on Twitch. All right, so we've got the pupil. We want it to be there. We want it to be there. We want it to be there. And by there, I mean here, 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 but not here. So we don't want it to be seen here. So let's treat it a little differently. So let's remove it completely and let's see what it looks like if we plug it into the top of the pupil composite. Okay, that's not good. Let's put it in front completely. And then let's have it only seen, table, only seen with, here, let's try this. All right, there we go. There we go. So now we've got one cutter and it's only seen the details of, and let's bring that back over here. And let's bring another cutter. That's not a cutter, another composite to here. So I'm actually just going to pop these two down. And then now we've got, so that's a little bit of an advanced move. I've actually never done a design like that. Let's see, if we zoom out, do we like it? If we don't like it, later. It'll look like this. Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll see what that looks like when we start to get further into the animation, but that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool little rigging trick. So let's leave it in for now. And I can reset all these pegs, but I can also delete them. I guess I'll leave them as, deactivate that for now. Oh, and actually I did break this. So it's a good thing that we double checked. I do want my, my Winkle to be cutting that line as well. So we do need to connect that. And that Winkle is cutting here. So now this cutter needs to change. So this actually goes here and here. There we go. So now there we got our first little network, our fully functioning eyebrow. Oh, and our eyebrow is no longer cutting this. So we want this to be here. Oh, I thought this was what I had though. No, this is not what I had earlier. All right, this is good. All right, we got this. We got this. All right, we don't even need this composite. There we go. We'll get rid of this one. But yes. Perfect. And now we can deactivate. No, activate, reset, and reset. There we go. Perfect. Perfect little network. So there we go. We've started to engineer. We haven't gone too far. Mabel just got patient again. But we'll stop here. We'll let that sink in. And we will keep engineering next week. And yeah, as always, again, shout out on my Instagram, my LinkedIn, if you have any questions. If you want to send me a picture of your eyebrow selfie, if you can do that other opposite, if you can do both ways, so jealous. And then if you want to send me a picture of your workspace, I'll post mine. All right, so have a good day, and yeah, catch me on Instagram for Lindsay K with an underscore, or Lindsay Noller on LinkedIn. Have a good night, you guys. See you next week.